Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate Butch and this is Kate Makes, the show where I make things. Today I'm doing something slightly different and you may call it a crime against God, and you'd be right. As you may know, I've been making things with fat quarters from Aldi. These can come in different branded styles. There's a Mary Poppins one, Peter Rabbit, Tinkerbell, and the one that I'm working with today. If you're familiar with my oeuvre, you may know that I am quite well known for doing a Peppa Pig lip sync.
Can you whistle, Susie? No. Oh, good. I mean, that's sad if you can't whistle, but good, because I can't whistle. What's whistling, anyway? You put your lips together and blow. Like this.
And when I happened upon some Peppa Pig fat quarters, I realised that I was going to have to do something quite major with them. So today I'm making a full dress out of fat quarters. I haven't seen anywhere else on the internet that does a full adult dress out of fat quarters, so maybe I'm a trailblazer, maybe I'm a war criminal, who can say? So I've got my fat quarters, my sewing machine is fired up, I'm ready to disappoint God, let's get started!
For this project I'm taking my pack of 5 fat quarters, and also my by hand London Kim dress bodice that I've used before. And this will fit both the middle pieces, front and back, on one fat quarter, and each of the side pieces on another fat quarter. Then I'm going to use the rest of them for the skirt. Just pinning these on. I decided to cut this one in half, just because the pattern, the way it's made, it would look a bit weird. So I turned it around so that the pattern would be reflecting itself, if that makes any sense at all. Once the pieces are pinned, I'm just marking a couple of inches away from the bottom, because I know that I need to extend this, because it's a bit small for me. Then I'm just going to cut out the pieces. And obviously, I wasn't paying attention, so just cut off my extended bit that I needed. It was a very sad time, so I quickly made another one on a spare fat quarter. So it's not going to be exactly the same pattern on both sides, but I can live with that. And I wrote a reminder to myself. And then I just assembled the bodice using a lining that was a sheet. Watch a previous video to see how this was made. And I tried it on, and I already knew that God was disappointed. Then I decided to make a patchwork skirt using layers of fat quarters with this fabric in strips in between each layer. And each row, I would change the pattern slightly to make a kind of diagonal effect. And I'd attach that to each side of the bodice with this random fabric that I found in my attic in the middle. It smells really bad. So I need to cut my fat quarters into 16 blocks. Luckily, the way it's folded, it's got lines delineating 16 blocks. So I just cut those all up. Annoyingly, the purple one is weirdly folded, so a couple of the rectangles are a bit smaller than the others. But that's fine. And I'm just arranging my rows of the skirt how I want them to be arranged. I did 9 rows of 4 blocks each. And then I just sewed them all together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then I just evened them out a bit because some of them were longer than others, because I did not cut the blocks very precisely. Then I'm checking how long they are compared to my strips. And I'm going to use a different fabric as a little edge bit on the end of each of them. And it's this fabric. I'm cutting them into squares and attaching them to the end of each row. Then I'm cutting out my strips of fabric by hand, because the lines are a bit uneven, to do with the rotary cutter. Then I'm just attaching each strip to each row. and then attaching all the rows together. And I end up with something like this. And I'm going to make something exactly the same for the other side, but I'm going to flip the pattern so the diagonal is going differently. Like so. And then I also had a few blocks left over, so I decided to make a little trim for the bottom of it. Also using up those weirdly shaped purple ones. So I sewed them together, like so, folded them in half, and sewed along the top. And then I gathered all of these down, pinned them to each skirt piece, and sewed like so. It's got a little ruffly binding. Then I just evened up the weirdly proportioned sides, and finished the side that would be in the middle of the skirt. Then I'm going to gather all of these down and sew them to the bodice. Then I'm cutting out of this weird fabric a middle piece, gathering that down, finishing the edges, and sewing it to the bodice. And then I've got this, and I'm following the skirt down where the Peppa fabric and the old fabric meet. I'm just hand stitching them together so it doesn't gape too much when I walk.
And this is the finished dress. Can you hear that? It's God weeping. Even though it's made of the most demonic fabric possible, I'm actually quite happy with how this turned out. I like the mixture of patterns, and I'm quite happy with my patchworking skills on the skirt. And it goes really nicely with my handmade Peppa Pig face mask. Do check the video on how I made those. These will keep me nice and safe when I'm panic buying chewits. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this Peppa Pig monstrosity. If you did, please do subscribe, ring the bell to get notifications. Do follow me on social media at KateButch1 to make sure that you don't miss another episode of Kate Makes. And wash your hands, 20 seconds.